I was born a Catholic. I went to Catholic school until I was 10 years old. My mom and dad got a divorce. My mom was a real strong Catholic. I remember Monsignor Dusky coming to the home and telling my mom she was no longer welcome in the church. So that tore my mom up pretty bad. She ended up having a nervous breakdown. All three of us kids were placed on a sheep ranch. We were there for approximately, 8 to 12 weeks until my mom could come home from the hospital. So then it was back to getting the life back together, and us kids had to transfer to public schools. Well, once we got into public school and my dad was no longer in my life, I pretty much became a hooligan. A lot of fighting and different stuff. I ended up in the juvenile courts. They decided with my mom that it was time for me to be removed from school and put in Job Corps where I could go to school and fight all at the same time. So they sent me to Clearfield, Utah. So that didn't work out. So when I came back, I never did complete school. I went as far, I think, the 10th grade, but I never did complete it. I've just always thought that's a big world out there, and I didn't want to miss none of it. So I was always on the go. Didn't like working for anybody. I didn't hold jobs very long because I wanted to be the man. So I've been in business off and on most of my life. I've been doing business for probably better than 30 years. I lived out in Phoenix a lot of years. I came back here and I became a bail bondsman. I was AAA bail bonding here in the 90s. And there was a guy that asked me to get his daughter out of jail. So I got her out of jail. She was on drugs really bad. And her and another guy ran off to California. And I was also a bounty hunter. We had a team, so we retrieved them. I brought her back. Her dad didn't want her to be in jail. He said she's 6 months pregnant. So you couldn't tell. I mean, she's big around as a pencil. So then I just kept monitoring her, and the day came when she had to go to the hospital and have the baby. Well, in between this time, me being a bondsman, back in those days, they give out matches and all that stuff at the bars. They don't do that any longer. And Mike was in business back then, and he printed most of my T-shirts I used to furnish to all the bars in town for the barmaids and stuff to wear. So that meant I had to frequent the bars. You know, if you're a bondsman, you need to be in the bars because that's where your clients are. So it got to where I drank quite a bit. But I've always been a guy that I had to do this myself. I'm in control of myself. I don't believe that anything can control me. But I knew I was drinking way too much. So I tried to get a handle on that. Well, then when this girl had to have the baby at the hospital, her dad called me. I was waiting for her to get all this done because I just knew she was going to have to go back to jail, but I'm just kind of monitoring it. So she asked her dad to come into the delivery room. He just said he couldn't handle it. She asked if her bondsman was out there, and they told her yes, and she asked me if I would come in. So I'm 40-some years old. My first relationship, I was with that gal for 15 years. We never had a child. So I thought, well, you know, I'll go in. I've never seen this in person. So I put the garb on. I went in, and Dr. Boo Hodges started doing his thing, and next thing I knew, he pulled out this little white chalky thing, and he handed it straight to me. And as soon as he handed it to me, it was just weird. I started crying. So I looked at the baby, and I started crying in front of everybody, and I just said, I'm never going to let you go. So from that day on, I've been her father. I went straight to my attorneys from the delivery room. I worked out the deals. I agreed to pay for everything. I knew she wasn't going to be able to raise the child. So when she got out of the hospital, we brought her to my house. I married her in my living room. It didn't take long. I married her in my living room so that my name was on the title. I mean, the birth certificate. I'm a car salesman. So anyway, I got my name on the birth certificate, and then it took a little rigmarole, and she knew the child was better off with me, so she exited the picture. I raised my daughter Kaylee from day one. And then, but, you know, like I said, it just, I don't know what it was. Now I know from being here that it had to have been God. So he saved her, and I think he saved me. I don't know what was going to happen. You know, I was living pretty dangerously. I mean, there was a lot of stuff, you know, we were involved in that, you know, it was just, it was a rough life then. But I've always been a good guy. But I'm sitting there looking at this little thing, and I told my mom, you know, I'm going to be a dad. So I went and checked into it, and I took parenting classes. So I went through that, and then in my offices, there's always been women working in my offices, so I had help. Kaylee's never been to a babysitter in her life. She's 23 years old now. By the time she was 5, you know, I just kept thinking, see, I never went to church after that. When I dropped out at 10, there was no more church for me. Church was just done. And when you're a Catholic, you go every day. I went to Catholic school. We went to, I think, catechism on Saturday, isn't it? And then, you know, you're going to church 9 days a week. I mean, it's just, so I was totally lost from the church. And then when Kaylee turned 5, I knew it was time that if I'm going to be a good dad, because that was my focus, was to be a good dad. And so I wanted to get her involved in a church. So we started, I went to Little Lamb where I took her to preschool, and she didn't care much for that. We went to the Catholic church. First we went to the Catholic church, but it was still Domi Miscul Biscum and all the kneeling and jumping up and down. She didn't go for that. And then we heard about CrossRoads. So they were in the Bonanza building. And Kaylee helped me figure out when it was I started with CrossRoads. It was the last year at the Bonanza building. So we went over there, and they had a few rows set up, and the band got up there, and they started playing, and my daughter immediately put her hands over her ears. And I just asked her, honey, you want to leave? And she goes, no, and that's where we landed. So, but by the time she was 12 years old, she was involved in children's church. Some of you that were here probably remember my daughter. She grew up in this church till she was 13. But she asked me when she was 12, she said, Dad, when I turn 13, can I make my own decision if I want to go to church? And I said, yes. But I thought she was heavily involved because she was doing a lot of stuff in here. Then when she was 13, I forget exactly when it was, she said she didn't want to go to church no more. So it really kicked me in the pants, but, you know, I stand by my word with my daughter. So she didn't go to church, and of course, I continued with CrossRoads. I've been with CrossRoads ever since. But I've always sat in that chair, and I listened to all kinds of people come up here and give their testimonies. And I'm not going to lie, I used to sit there and think, oh, come on. You know, they're talking about how God worked in their life. And it took me a long time to grasp it. But then before I realized it, you know, I'm praying. So, and I wasn't afraid to pray. And then I pray a lot now. And every morning when I'm in the shower, as soon as I'm done showering, I ask God to rinse me free of all my impurities and lifelong sins. And I have a personal relationship with God, and I talk to him heavily all the time. And I'm not somebody that can go out and just lean on somebody and independently talk about myself. So I talk to God because I think I have a strong relationship. There was times I thought about coming to Pastor Ron, you know, things that bothered me or I needed answers. But then I thought, no, I don't want to bug him. So I'd ask God. But then what started happening was I'd come to church on Sunday, and the answers I was looking for, he was revealing them right up here. And I thought, man, that's a coincidence, but I got it answered. Well, then that started happening through the years more often than not. So when there's been more than maybe 8 or 9 or 10 times that I've needed answers for certain things, and that man standing over there answers them, that's God. And I've told Ron, I don't know how many times I've told Ron through the years, he'll never know what he's done for me in my life. But what happened with my daughter now is she graduated high school, her and her boyfriend that went through high school together. They graduated, they had scholarships. My daughter doesn't smoke, she doesn't do drugs. So I did my job that I wanted to do to be a dad. But during that summer, after they graduated, my daughter got pregnant. So my first thought was I was hurt, you know, because I wanted her to be married. So I thought, well, I'll sue Cox Television for not having enough movies on. So that didn't work, but we took them to the courthouse. They got married, and we planned a wedding for later. We just had the wedding here several months back. But what happened was, just like Ron talks about planting that seed, well, that seed was planted in my daughter. She was here until she was 13, but now she's back in the church. It's not this church, but she became a Catholic. So I don't know, it's a revolving thing, but she took the classes, and she asked me if I would have a problem with her being a Catholic, and it just made me cry. I was happy. So she's back in the church. She's a Catholic, but it is what it is. But, you know, that's just, I've had so many good things happen since I've been with this church. And sometimes I reflect on that, all the things that's happened to me just because of this church. And then it got to where when I would leave here on Sunday, no matter what happened to me through the week, it was all gone. That rest of that day was just awesome. It's like I took a Valium and I was just totally relaxed. And I just always wanted to thank Ron all the time. And then in my entire life, I've never read a book. I'm 68 years old and I've never read a book. I've never entirely read the newspaper. But Ron sits up here and reads the Bible to me. And that's why I sit in the front row so that I don't get distracted, because I'm easily distracted. If I sit back there, I'm looking at all you guys. So I sit right here. And then Mark turned me on to audio Bible so I could travel and listen to my Bible. But I reflect all the old days here in the church. It's been so much fun, and I've met a lot of people. Some of you are new, and if you're looking for a place to land, or if you think things aren't real, it'll get real. If you just hang in there long enough, you'll realize it's really real. I know for a fact that God is real, and I know there's some prayers He don't answer for me, but He's answered a lot of prayers. It's just not a coincidence, just like the things I ask, and Ron answers them to me here in church. So God's in my life 100% now. I'm just so thankful. I'm thankful for my daughter. I'm thankful for my grandson. I'm stressed out right now. I wanted them to be at my testimony, but they're out of country, and then of all the places they wanted to go to, they're in Guadalajara, Mexico, which I wasn't real crazy about that. But she gave me a grandson. I'm so happy about everything. And you guys are wonderful. If you just got to the new people, you just need to hang in there, because it'll become real. It's became real for me, and I'm just so thankful for Ron and everybody in this church, and God bless everybody. Thank you.